I cannot support efforts that will continue this lawlessness that we're seeing when it comes to this administration's actions.
As Elon Musk and his gang of child thieves rampage through the federal government worse than Coney did 2012, there are some members of the Democratic Party who are pointing out the obvious cliff that we're approaching.
But the speaker's got to start getting that train moving. Otherwise, he will close the government.
Representative Jared Moskowitz was in the House of Congress today, pointing out the iceberg that is the March 14th deadline to pass a budget. He lays out the perfect argument here that really points to the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. I've got the full clip for you here in a second, but if you're enjoying the content, make sure to like the video and double check that you're subscribed. It seems like every year that the government shuts down now. Where it was once seen as a mini crisis, now it's just seen as part of the political theater we're all kind of tuning out. But that deadline is quickly approaching again in just 4 weeks, and it looks like Congress is looking to pass another short-term spending bill known as a continuing resolution, with support from both the Republican side in the House and Senate and the Democratic side on the House and the Senate. Normally, this wouldn't be much news at all, but as Jared Moskowitz expertly points out in this next clip, things aren't exactly normal when we have Elon Musk rooting through our purses and calling in an audit.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today because I am deeply concerned that we are headed towards a government shutdown, which is on March 14th. And it's not about whether Democrats or Republicans would win politically, because we know the American people will lose. But let me tell you why I'm deeply concerned that we are headed to a government shutdown on March 14th. I'm worried because the Speaker has not brought the 12 individual spending bills, the way we should fund the government. In fact, the promise that was made by my Republican colleagues on how we would fund the government. Republicans have made the argument that the last election was about the status quo disappearing. It can't exist. People are fed up. They created DOGE, right? DOGE, which is going through the federal government and finding fraud, waste, and abuse, so they say, so they claim. But if that's true, Mr. Speaker, if Elon Musk and DOGE has found all this fraud and waste and abuse, hundreds of billions of dollars, as they claim, well then, Mr. Speaker, we can't fund the government by CR anymore, because the CR would refund all of that waste, fraud, and abuse that DOGE has found.
That's exactly how you do it. I love that, calling their bluff. Because the Republican Party can't have it both ways. They can't have this maverick executive who's just doing whatever he wants, uprooting agencies, saying fuck it with the budget, then have the Republicans in Congress go about business as usual, funding the government the same way they always have. Because the way that we've been keeping the government from shutting down is passing these continuing resolutions, saying that the money that we've spent is going to be spent again. And so if the Republicans turn around and pass this continuing resolution, they're basically going to have undone everything that Donald Trump and his boss, Elon Musk, has done.
Which means the only way to fund the government is to fund it by individual spending bills. But we're running out of time, Mr. Speaker. We have a month before the government shuts down. We got to get back to the process of individual spending bills. If we don't, then the Speaker will be the one who will have closed the government for the American people. And so I'm concerned. I'm here to work with the Speaker on the 12 individual spending bills. Democrats are at the table to do that. But we have to be honest. We can't tell the American people we're for reducing fraud, waste, and abuse. We're for government efficiency. Look at all these things we have found. And then say, but we're going to refund them all with a clean CR. And so, Mr. Speaker, I rise to say I'm here. I'm willing to stay weekends. I'm willing to work for the next month so that we can fund the government appropriately by the 12 individual spending bills, a promise that my Republican colleagues made. But the Speaker's got to start getting that train moving. Otherwise, he will close the government.
This is a huge opportunity for the Democrats. Here's a chance to make them put their money where their mouth is, because the narrative that the Republicans in Congress are going against their dear leader Donald Trump would be just too damning for their base. If the Democrats were smart, they'd say, thank you, Republicans. I appreciate you finally coming to your senses and going against Donald Trump's crazy behavior. I appreciate you approving of all of the spending that we laid out and going against Elon Musk. I'm sure you'll agree when the courts say that everything Donald Trump has been doing is illegal. Make them say, oh no, we didn't want to do this, but they did it anyway? Put them between the rock and the hard place that they've created for themselves. But let's see what the Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, thinks that we should do.
Will you use the spending bill and the March 14th deadline to try to rein him in?
Look, here's the bottom line. The Republicans are already shutting down good chunks of the government. Democrats don't want to shut down, but it's in Republicans' hands. It's up to them. Yes.
Really inspirational there, Chucky. The Democrats don't seem to understand the world that we live in now. We are in the age of rhetoric. We are in the age of social media. As soon as you let Donald Trump get away with calling facts fake news, it's all over from there. No amount of bitching and moaning is going to convince them that Donald Trump is lying to them because what he says is truth. And so the American people eat up the slop that they see on Fox News. You're allowing the Republicans to win the narrative game. Chuck Schumer and Jeffries both of our Democratic leaders are just saying, well, there's nothing we can do. They're throwing their hands up and acting like we don't live in a world where your word is more important than anything. I am so glad that there are still some Democrats like Jared Moskowitz who understands how to put some pressure on the Republicans even though it's their government right now. I don't speak for everybody, but I know I speak for a large majority of Democrats who say, we don't want feckless leaders right now. We need warriors, people who are willing to stand up and fight the billionaires who are robbing our coffers blind. And if our current Democratic leaders are unable or unwilling to fight back, then they need to step aside and allow some other Democrats who have the fire and creativity to fight back.
Because your colleague Jeff Merkley basically said he's prepared to try to shut down the government over some of these sledgehammer actions that he's seeing by Elon Musk. Are you prepared to shut down the government, to join Democratic colleagues who want to stand in the way of keeping the government open?
Well, you have to look at what the Trump administration is doing right now. They are simply trying to dismantle the government. So yes, look, if we have to take steps to be able to hold them accountable, use the leverage that we have to force it, I cannot support efforts that will continue this lawlessness that we're seeing when it comes to this administration's actions. And for us to be able to support government funding in that way, only for them to turn it around to dismantle the government, that is not something that should be allowed.
So just to be clear, Senator, you are open to voting yes to shut down the government, to make this point.
This is on them. This is about whether or not they can get the votes. They are the majority, and if they cannot govern, then you know, that's for the American people to see. But I've worked in government. I've worked through multiple government shutdowns. I would be the last person to want to get to that stage. But we are at a point where we are basically on the cusp of a constitutional crisis, seeing this administration taking steps that are so clearly illegal. And until we see a change in that behavior, we should not allow and condone that, nor should we assist in that.
There are tons of mechanisms within the halls of Congress that can be used to slow down or point the blame directly at the Republicans. And we are missing the opportunity for a unified message here that puts the current cost of living crisis that Trump ran on squarely at his tiny little feet, because prices are going up, and the only time the American people really pay attention is when their wallets are hit. So now is a great opportunity to start that momentum. We need a unified Democratic Party right now, and not this laissez-faire, well, there's nothing we can do attitude. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.